everyone. My name is Matthew Murray, and I'm an educator here at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. Thank you for joining us today as we move into our third week for the month of July, continuing our theme, all about forests. Along with the live stream we do each week, we also offer a really cool and free virtual scavenger hunt app that you can play right at home, along with an activity guide, both with new missions and activities each month. To download the app and explore all of this, go to www.wondersofwildlife.org/mission-conservation. This address will take you to our mission conservation webpage. On this page, check the box to the right that says Get the app and click the download button and follow the instructions. Once you have the app downloaded, create a user account and log in. Next, hit the search bar and type in Mission Conservation. This is where all of our at-home missions will pop up for you to play. If you look down a little further, you'll see our featured missions. Featured missions are the most current missions we have to offer. The last place that I'll bring your attention to on this page is the schedule of missions and activities. This section will show you all of the missions that are live, including our current mission, Forests. If you click on the plus sign, it will drop down the tab and you can find the link to the activity guide for this month. The activity guide has a craft, a fun outdoor activity, and something that you can do to help forests. So I'm currently standing here in our wildlife galleries in front of our Chugach National Forest exhibit. It's really amazing to be able to escape out into the beauty of our national parks and be able to be surrounded and immersed in the forest like the one you see behind me. But there is also a lot of beauty in the landscapes found here within our cities and suburbs as well. Here to talk to us today is Rachel Holmes, the Urban Forest Lead for the Nature Conservancy. How are you doing today, Rachel?
I am doing fabulously today, Matthew. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. So what do you have to talk to us about?
Well, today I would like to talk to everybody at home, everyone listening in, and thanks everybody for being here. I want to talk to you today about trees in cities, why they matter, what may be attacking our trees in cities, and how you can help.
Sounds really cool. So let's jump right in.
Excellent. All right, so thanks, Matt, for the introduction. And as he said, I am the Urban Forestry Strategist for the Nature Conservancy, or the Urban Forestry Lead. And I'm really excited to talk to you all today. And I just want to introduce, for those at home, there is my trusty sidekick, Banjo. So if he barks during this conversation, that's just him trying to contribute. So if it's all right with all of you, I am going to share my screen. And so bear with me for just a minute, folks. And I'm going to load everything up. So I hope everybody is having a good summer day, wherever it is that you're coming in from. And here we go. All right. And I'm going to ask, Matthew, is everything okay? Can you see my screen?
Yes, everything looks great from this end.
All right, so here we go, folks. So as I said, I'm really excited to talk to you today about trees in cities. And before we go any further, I know you've had a couple workshops about trees. I know you learned about how to identify trees. You learned about dendrochronology. Today, the foundation of our talk is going to be about urban forestry. Now, a lot of people say to me, urban forestry, that doesn't make any sense. There aren't, a forest isn't in a city, but I say absolutely. So we have trees in cities. There are trees in your backyard, in a local park, maybe at your school. And so my job as an urban forester is to protect and grow trees in cities. So that's what urban forestry is, folks. It is the science and the art, because it's not always a perfect science, the science and art of growing and protecting trees in cities. And in my role, I get to work all throughout the country. I work in Missouri. I get to work in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Portland, all different places. And each location has unique needs. So really special landscapes that require special tools and really new and different approaches. And one of the best parts about my job is that I'm not only managing trees, but I'm also helping manage people who manage trees. And so in urban forestry, folks, one of the most important messages for you to take away from today is that our trees in cities need us, and all of us have a role to play in protecting those trees that protect us. And we're going to talk a lot more about that throughout this whole section on urban forestry and tree health. But before I go any further, the organization that I work for is called the Nature Conservancy. We are the largest conservation organization in the world. And our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. So not just trees, not just animals, people too. We're in 70 countries and all 50 states. We have 400 scientists, 400 plus scientists on our staff that help us make sure that we're doing the best that we possibly can for our planet. And we have 1 million members throughout the world that also care about conservation and care about protecting our world. So I want to start out by just basically reminding everyone of why we care so much about trees. So I'm going to share my favorite book, which is, I'm sure you've all seen it, or hopefully you've seen it, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Every time I see it, I cry. But what I wanted, or every time I read it, I cry. But what I want to share with you are just a reminder of some of the reasons why trees are so important for us. So first of all, they cool our air. They do it by shade. Whoops. And guys, I am going to hopefully, these slides may advance on their own, but don't you worry, I will make sure that they don't go too fast. So they cool our air, and they do it by providing shade. And they also do it by acting sort of as big straws. So they take water from the ground and they take the water up through the leaves and they let the water out. And if you've ever gotten out of a pool, even when it's hot out and you still have water on your body, it's still, you get a little chilly. So that's something called, it's a fancy term called evapotranspiration. The fancy way of saying that by taking water out through the ground and putting it out into the atmosphere, out into the environment, our trees can also help to cool us that way. They can help to clean our water and our air. I'm sure you all know that you've probably seen birds and squirrels and all kinds of little animals and insects that make trees their homes, so habitat for wildlife. They give us wood and paper products, and they are actually can be responsible for our health and our happiness. There's all kinds of research and studies that tell us that trees can help with our stress, release our stress. They can even help you do better on tests in school and help you even feel happier and enjoy more out of your time with your friends. And one of the coolest things that we're learning now is that trees can also help fight crime. So we know that when streets are lined with trees, there's less incidents of violence, and they just make for safer streets, which everyone loves. So what I want to show you with is a little bit of science here, folks. So we do know that, and bear with me, large, long-lived, so long lifespan, large, long-lived, mature trees provide the most benefit to people. And so this fancy little chart, I just want to highlight here on this side, on this left side, the y-axis, this is how much money trees give us in services. So if I were to put a dollar amount on everything a tree does for me, that's what's on this left column, okay? So the numbers go up, so they increase in price, increased in the amount or the value that trees provide. And what I want to show you is this blue, dark blue line. So this is the large, long-lived trees. And you'll notice that it's the highest, right, between year 30 and year 60. So what that tells us, folks, is that it's in our best interest to protect trees and make sure that they live a long time, knowing that that 30 to 60 year window, so when they hit 30 years old, all the way to when they're roughly 60 years old, they are maxing out and doing the best possible job they can for us to protect our health. So whenever you see a tree that maybe looks like it's been there for a long time, stop and appreciate that tree because it is doing a lot for us and has done a lot throughout its lifespan. So knowing that mature trees, long-lived trees really do the most for us, the Nature Conservancy created a whole program around protecting mature trees in cities. So we're about 7 years old. The program is called the Healthy Trees, Healthy Cities program. It's a partnership with the Forest Service. Some of you may know the Forest Service. They're the government agency that protects our trees, not just in our forests, our national forests, but they also protect trees in cities, which is really important. And then a college partner, University of Georgia. And what we did through this initiative is we created a suite of tools and resources that can help you help trees in cities. Because again, as I said, our trees in cities, they have a rough life. And it's our responsibility to protect and maintain them and make sure that they're happy and living long lives. So some of the tools that we also have an app, and I know that the Wonders of Wildlife and the Mission Conservation talked about, Matthew shared about the app with you today. We also have an app, and I would love it if you download it and use it. It has lots of great information and tools and information, and you can get up to speed real quick on the importance of trees and how they help us. And then we also have some web-based resources and some training resources that might be of interest to you as well. So I mentioned our app, and today what I want to share with you is our Healthy Trees Healthy app, which has a number of different elements to it. The one that I want to talk to you about today is our pest detection element. So folks, as I mentioned to you, trees in cities have a rough life. When a tree is in a forest, it has lots of different resources and things that it can do. It has more access to water. It has more growing space. In a city, trees have what we call compacted soil. So every time a car drives or people walk, that can sort of tamp down the soil over time, and it's harder for the roots to grow and extend. They also sometimes they get car doors opened on them, or they get dogs that use them as restrooms. So it's really a tough life for trees. One of the things that we can do is regularly monitor them. So we want to look for signs and symptoms that they're stressed, or signs and symptoms that maybe they have insects or diseases, right, that are attacking them. And that's really common in cities, especially cities on the coast, for a lot of reasons. So today, folks, what I want to talk to you about is one particular insect that we are very interested in. And so the question is, who are we looking for? And today we're going to talk about the emerald ash borer. And I don't know if you can see my earrings, and I'll just show these to you, but these are the outer wings of beetles in the same family of the emerald ash borer. So you can see how shiny and bright, and they almost look like an emerald. That's the same family of the insect that we call the emerald ash borer. Its identifying characteristics are that it's very, very small. It's only up to a ½ inch long. As I said, it's bright and metallic green. And then the underside is sort of like a coppery red. The adults usually emerge in the late spring and summer, and so they're kind of past their time now. They usually come around end of May, early June, but the larvae are flat, and so that's what you see in this bottom right picture. They're flat, they're white, they're around 1 inch long, and they have little bell shapes, like little bell-shaped segments, okay? So they're flat, and that's the larva. And I'm going to talk to you about their life cycle. So the emerald ash borer life cycle, they start out as eggs, then they hatch, those eggs hatch, and they become larvae. So a larva also, I'm sure you've heard of a caterpillar, that's a larva. But what the emerald ash borer larva does is it tunnels, it goes back and forth behind the outer bark in what we call the cambium. So there's outer bark and then there's inner bark on a tree. The inner bark is where all the nutrients go from the leaves down into the roots. So there's a lot of good sugary deliciousness. And that's what that larva is living off of. So it's going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth through that phloem, or through that inner bark, and chew on all of the deliciousness. And folks, trees, if you think of them as like a bundle of straws, if you ever get a hole in a straw, right, when you're trying to drink your soda or whatever, if the hole is above what you're trying to drink, what happens? You can't get the drink out, right? You can't get your soda or whatever out of the straw. So that's what sort of happens to trees. Over time, as these larvae cut holes in these straws, the tree can no longer get water up, and it can't send its sugary starches down into the roots. So over time, the tree eventually declines and may die. And so I have some samples here today, and I hope you can see this, but this is a real piece of ash wood. And this is what the larva leaves behind, right? We call these S-shaped galleries because they look like S's. And basically what this is the larva starting out up here real small, and then over time it gets bigger and bigger, it's getting bigger in size, and it makes these S-shaped galleries, okay? And again, if you think about this as a big collection of straws and getting all these tiny little holes in those straws. Over time, that's how the tree declines. And just another piece, so this is the outer bark, right? So this is what you would see outside on the tree. And then this is the sort of, you can kind of see how the S-shaped galleries also form on the outer bark, right on the inside. So this is how this would go, like this. So after the larva gets good, nice and full, what it does is it folds over and it creates a pupa, which is the top right image here. So this pupa is one of the last stages before the emerald ash borer emerges as an adult. Now, what do you notice about these? Hey, Matthew, what do you notice about these little holes? What shape do they look like?
Kind of look like a sideways D to me.
Very good, Matthew. Awesome. Matthew is paying attention today. So yes, we know that the emerald ash borer, which is a flat-headed borer, so it has a flat head, it creates a D-shaped exit hole. And that is very unique to flat-headed borers, and especially the emerald ash borer. So that's one of the telltale signs of how we know that an emerald ash borer may be in an ash tree. I should have said, folks, ash is a species of tree. Fraxinus is the fancy Latin name. And there are a number of different species within the Fraxinus genus, okay? All right, and so talking about the host trees, we've got green ash, white ash, and black ash trees throughout the United States. That's an image of the leaf. It's a compound leaf, which means that it's one long leaf made up of several leaflets, okay? So this whole thing is one leaf, oops. And I want to point out that some of us get worried about mountain ash, which is another tree across the country, but that is actually not in the Fraxinus genus, right? That's a separate species of tree. It just has the same common name. So these are just some pictures of the ash tree. It has opposite branching, so you may have learned that in your tree identification class. It has opposite branching, and it's one of the telltale trees that's fairly easy to recognize in the forest and even in our cities. It's a wonderful tree because it provides lots of shade. It can provide a lot of habitat for wildlife. The firewood is really good. You don't have to leave it over for a year. You can burn it almost right after you cut it down. So it's a really valuable tree, not just in our forests, but also in our cities. All right, so let's talk a minute about emerald ash borer and where it has been found. So this is a map from January that shows all these little red dots that show where the latest infestations have been found. So, right, so I'm sorry, these are the initial counties that had EAB detected. But the blue area is all of the counties where we have seen emerald ash borer infestations. That's a pretty wide range, right? And then you can see Missouri is right here where our Wonders of Wildlife Museum is located. So emerald ash borer is around, it's making its way. You see it's all the way out in Denver. And one of the ways that it gets spread is through something called moving firewood, right? What happens is people are moving around this firewood. They don't know that the larvae are behind the outer bark unless they have X-ray vision, which not anybody, I don't know, maybe Matthew, do you have X-ray vision?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, good. You never know, maybe you do, but most of us can't see the larva behind the bark. And so what happens is when we move our firewood, let's say we're going camping and we move our firewood, we're actually moving the little insects with us, right? We're moving like little nurseries of insects. And if you burn your wood, maybe you don't burn all of it, and you say, oh, I'm going to leave some for the next camper, then you're basically leaving the little nursery. So when the insects come out, then they can do their thing and they've colonized a new place. So that coupled with, so the range of where we know emerald ash borer is coupled with where ash can currently be found naturally. That's what all this green area means. So it shows you where all of the ash is located in the country. And so you can see it's roughly the same places where emerald ash borer is found. But you also see we have some spaces on, we have some ash found in California and on the Pacific coast. And then some ash resources here as well in Arizona and Utah. So we want to be super careful about making sure that we contain emerald ash borer as much as we can. So what are we going to look for? So if you're out there and you're seeing, you know you have an ash tree, right? And that's the first thing. What is it that you're going to be looking for? So one thing that we say to look for is crown dieback. That's dead branches at the top of the tree. So a tree naturally, it's going to send all of its growth right out towards the outer edges of the crown. The crown is the part of leaves, the part of the tree that's the leaves and the branches. And so it's naturally going to send most of its growth out towards the outer part of the crown. Now, if you start to see little branches dying on the outer part of the crown, that's one of the first signs that the tree is stressed and something is going on. The other thing we're going to look at is something we call suckers, or the fancy word is epicormic sprouts. And this is basically the tree saying, uh-oh, I'm not feeling well. I need to set up my emergency route. And it sends branches out closer to the base of the tree. Sometimes that's because those straws are cut and it can't get material down and water up. So it sends the branches out closer to home, so to speak. And sometimes that's also just the only place that there's still living tissue in the tree. And then finally, wilting and yellowing leaves. Now this happens a lot, right? Especially the end of the summer when it's real dry and your trees are thirsty. But wilting and yellowing leaves with some of these other signs is a sure sign that maybe something's going on with your ash tree. So again, we've got these S-shaped galleries like I showed you, right, in this wood. Then we've got bark fissures or splits or cracks. And that happens when frost gets into the dead bark. It can water gets in, when it freezes, it expands, and then it leaves a crack or a crevice. This is a big one, guys. So this is woodpecker damage. So when an insect, when a woodpecker, they can kind of sense when there's larvae behind the bark. And what they start doing is they start flecking off the outer bark, right? So they start flecking all of this off. And you can kind of see, I think you can kind of see a little bit of the difference in color. So here it's nice and gray, and here it's like a lighter yellowy, whitish tan color. So this is a place where a woodpecker flecked off some of the outer bark to be closer to where they might find the larva. So that's one of the most significant signs, because you can see how little the D-shaped exit holes are. You see the person's finger, right? They're tiny, tiny, tiny. You may not see them, but you certainly will see woodpecker damage. So I want to share just a couple resources with you guys. So we've got a number of websites that you can go to learn more about emerald ash borer. And I want to share, obviously there's Don't Move Firewood, which is well, it's not obvious, but it's a Nature Conservancy program that just does a little bit more about helping us to make sure we're not unknowingly carrying insects or diseases across the country to new places. And then what I want to share with you guys really briefly is one quick mention of an insect, and we're going to actually watch a really fun video. So bear with me. But what we're looking at for the Asian longhorn beetle, which is a really cool beetle, guys, I'm not going to lie, it's very cool. It's very big, and it's known for its what they call horns, but those are actually antennae. And guys, I've gotten to meet an Asian longhorn beetle, and what they do, and it's kind of fun, what they do is they swing their antenna around before they're about to take off and fly. So this particular guy is another one of these bark boring beetle or wood boring beetles. So he goes into the wood, he or she goes into the wood a little bit deeper than just the outer bark, but they operate similarly. They do damage by cutting holes through the main part of the tree or the trunk. They eat leaves a little bit, but their main damage is done through the inner part of the tree when they're larvae. All right. And so why am I telling you all this, guys? Well, then anybody, Matthew, do you recognize this lady?
I don't think so.
All right, well, I don't blame you. She is not an entomologist, so she's not a bug doctor. She is not a fancy scientist. You know who she is? She is Donna Massey, and she is a retired school teacher in Worcester, Massachusetts. And she was the first person in the United States to find the Asian longhorn beetle. And I bring her up because she's not a fancy scientist. She doesn't have a PhD in entomology. She's not out there looking for insects. She stumbled on the Asian longhorn beetle in her backyard, and she didn't know what it was. And it was so big. It's a big bug, right? A big insect. And she thought it was going to actually harm her grandkids. So she got on the internet and she started looking up insects that had black, shiny black patent leather outer wings with white spots. And she was able to identify, finally, after days of searching, that it was the Asian longhorn beetle. And she called the authorities. And we have a colleague who said that the day she got the call from Donna was the day that her career changed forever, because that was the day that we knew that the United States had Asian longhorn beetle. And I might add, folks, that typically where these insects come from, and the reason that they're called Asian longhorn beetle, many of them are coming from other parts of the world, and they basically hitchhike on what we call pallets. So when we get our, our video games or our cell phones, they get shipped over on wood pallets. And just the same way that you maybe move firewood with larvae in them, these pallets also can move. They also can be nurseries and move insects to our shores. So that's another way that we transport these insects unknowingly, and why coastal cities, as I said, are so critical, because the first place that all these goods come, all of these things that we buy from Amazon and everything else, the first place they land is coastal cities on ships. So Donna Massey, as I said, she is just like you and me. She is somebody that found this insect, and without her, we may not even still know what we're looking for. So that's why I want to tell you about different things that you can do, and the app that we have to detect insects and diseases. And I'm going to switch over and show you a quick video. So bear with me, everyone. Where are we here? Excellent. All right. So I've shared my sound. Matthew, if you can just give me a thumbs up when I play this to make sure that you can hear it okay. Great.
The Asian longhorn beetle, or ALB, is an invasive insect that threatens our environment, economy, and the beauty of our landscapes. You will find it most often on maple trees, but it can also attack elm, willow, horse chestnut, and most other hardwoods except oak. To detect Asian longhorn beetles, keep these facts in mind. Importantly, ALBs are often not visible from the ground, so you should look for signs of tree infestation. Start by using just your eyes or a pair of binoculars to scan the upper central branches for signs of tree dieback, such as fall-colored leaves during summer, missing or dead leaves, and missing bark. Next, survey the bark for exit holes. These telltale holes are perfectly round, slightly smaller than a dime, and at least 1 inch deep. Woodpecker holes may look similar, but these tend to be in rows or clusters, while ALB exit holes are widely spaced. As you scan the bark, also look for egg pits, which are shallow, chewed-out divots in the bark. These vary from a narrow slit to a full circle and can have oozing sap and dark stains around them. On the leaves, check for chewed-out veins. Also, look for sawdust at the base of the tree and branches. Summer through fall, you may see adult Asian longhorn beetles. Their bodies are 1 to 1.5 inches long, shiny black in color, and they have well-defined white spots that are sometimes yellowish. Their distinctively long, white-banded antennae are at least as long as their body, and their feet and legs can be bluish. The native white spotted sawyer is similar in appearance, but is found on pines and other conifers, not hardwoods, and is distinguishable by a white dot at the base of its wing covers, which is not present on ALB. If you think you have found an Asian longhorn beetle or signs of its presence, please document and report your find to local authorities. Thank you for helping to protect our trees and forests.
Okay, let me just turn that off. Sorry, folks. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to wrap up, guys, with just a friendly request of all of you budding scientists and conservationists out there. Here we go. Another set of videos that you can watch that the Nature Conservancy put out for Healthy Trees, Healthy Cities are found on, believe it or not, the Forest Service has its own YouTube channel. So all those YouTubers out there, go check out the Forest Service's YouTube channel. A lot of cool stuff about trees, especially urban trees. And we have a whole suite of a series of 8 videos that are very, very cool that talk about additional things that you can do through our app to document the signs and symptoms of stress and problems. And so, guys, as I said, I'm going to close us out with a request. Trees need your help. They need our help. As I said it earlier, and I'll say it again, trees in forests have a lot more resources, right? They have growing space, they have access to water, They don't have all the same threats that we have, that trees in cities have. The former chief of the Forest Service, Tom Tidwell, once said that urban trees are the hardest working trees in America, and that's true. So they work really hard for us, but we don't do enough for them. So my request to all of you is, please, if you have the time and maybe you have access to a phone or any kind of mobile device, download the Healthy Trees, Healthy Cities app. Check out the pest detection module. The interface looks like this. It's a series of questions, not high, not super tough. Basically, what it does is it asks you either yes or no. Does this thing exist? Or if it does, like this exit hole, is it D-shaped? Is it round like a pencil sized? And all of these metrics, all of these signs have information buttons. So if you're not totally sure what frass means or what is exudation, you click on that I button and it gives you a little tutorial on what that stuff is. So guys, I am so appreciative of this time today. Matthew, thank you so much for hosting me. This has been really, really fun. And I can't ask you enough from the bottom of my heart to please help all of us protect our trees so they can continue to do good work for us. And go get them, conservationists. Thank you, Mission Conservation.
Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you for talking to us about that really awesome app as well. That sounds like a really cool resource and tool to use to help contain the spread of these emerald ash borers and these other beetles and bugs that are really going to put a hurt on some of our trees that we really need. So appreciate you talking to us about that. There was a lot of great information on urban forests and monitoring trees' health so that people can continue to enjoy and go out into the wild around us. So as we end our live stream, I want to thank you for tuning in today. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday as we'll be continuing our forest theme and talking with Sam Stewart from the Missouri Department of Conservation. We hope to see you then. And remember, I want to leave you with this. Understand that we all live downstream. Thank you.